Hello and welcome to the Video Gamer UK podcast. I'm joined by Matt Nellis.
Hello there.
David Scammell.
Hello.
And Steve Burns.
Hello.
It's our first podcast in a new era of podcast realms. And so we've just been kind of having a tricky situation of going, who's going to sit in which seat?
It's a revolution.
It is.
There's all sorts going on up in here.
But I think we're comfortable. I think we're all sitting comfortably. And if you're sitting comfortably, we will begin. So Matt, what have you been playing?
Mate, you know what I've been playing. You know.
I know what you've been playing, but have you been playing anything other than League of Legends?
Let's see. Well, we played a little bit of Dead Space 3 last night. I was expecting scariness. I'm easily scared. I'm going to put it out there. I'm easily scared.
Dead Space 3. So obviously, yeah, this is out on Friday?
It's out on Friday,
yeah. Today already, I can't remember. But yeah, I wasn't massively impressed. It may well have been that it's difficult to feel frightened by things when you are kind of in an environment where you are sitting next to someone in a lit room. But
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't feel like I engaged with it. And it's interesting because I felt this with lots of games in the past couple of years, especially expensive games. It's almost like you throw a certain amount of money at something and you lose sight of what you're actually making almost.
Yeah, in a way. The thing is, like, I get scared very easily. Like, I had to stop playing the first Dead Space because I got too scared.
It wasn't even scary.
Well, exactly.
It wasn't scary
You know,
at all.
the first bit in...
Oh, come on, Dave. That's like
in
saying...
the first Dead Space...
Look,
it's not cold. It's not cold.
I was horrified by Slender. That scared the
Oh,
heck
yeah.
out of
See,
me.
Slender is very scary.
Dead Space was scary.
Yeah, but like Slender is more the atmosphere it builds. And I wasn't getting a sense of much atmosphere in Dead Space. Granted, I can only speak to the first 2 hours that we played. But it just seemed...
It's more this epic space odyssey atmosphere, isn't it?
Like,
than kind of...
It was, you kind of lost that whole confined space station, ghost station sort of thing.
Yeah.
Some incredible cutscenes though.
I think I need to invent a word for it though. It's like there's this thing I get when I'm playing games like Dead Space 3 where my reluctance to play it ends up with me just sort of squeezing the controller as if to like greasily squeeze it out of my hand and just let it drop on the floor and just wander off. And that's that incredible ambivalence. Especially I love playing video games so much that when games invoke that sense of like, I don't know how they've managed to do that. It's a really impressive feat.
Yeah, it's not even a case of disliking the game.
No, I'm just ambivalent.
Yeah.
It feels like to me, the first Dead Space game wanted to be scary. The second Dead Space game wanted to be like action-packed.
Yeah.
And it feels like the third Dead Space game just wants to be successful. It feels like a game that just wants you to like it.
Love me because stuff. Because it's the same but different. But now it's two players.
Faintly desperate. What did you think of it, Steve? Because you played quite a bit.
I thought that I think that the scariest thing about Resident Evil 6 and Dead Space 3 and those franchises these days is the chasing of the almighty Call of Duty dollar. They've gone wide rather than deep in the things that they do know. And as a result, as we've said, Dead Space 3 just feels like a game designed by a committee. It doesn't really have a strong sense of its own identity, I don't think. And it starts off, it's Uncharted, like every game. Every game's Uncharted now. And then it takes everything that you loved about, say, the first game. Let's just, because that's what people most associate with, Dead Space. Because a lot of people didn't like Dead Space 2. But the moment in Dead Space that really struck me was when you go out in zero G for the first time and awesome. All the sound drops out apart from your breathing. Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, you're maybe just going down a trench or something like that. And it's really cool. This, like, everything's exploding. It's bigger. It's bayer. It's too much. And talking about Slender, all of the big scares these days, like in Hollywood, don't come from the main studios. No. They come from the small guys who have to innovate because they don't have the budget, and it's a good thing.
That's it, actually. I was on One Life Left on Monday, actually, talking about fear in games, actually, the whole topic. And that was something that I was saying is the fact that it's like, what's great about video games is that when you've seen loads of horror movies, you stop being frightened because you know the pacing. You go, okay, and now here's the beat where they scare you, and it's always bang on. And that's why when you get these crazy little Spanish movies like Wreck, the first time I saw it, they scare you because they don't fit the mold. And games have the ability to do that because the pacing is erratic. And that's why Slender scared me so much, is because I knew something bad was going to happen, and I pretty much knew what was going to happen, but I didn't know when, and I had no way of knowing when.
That's what makes Slender. Random. We were discussing this yesterday. Like, there's nothing actually about Slender that is actually scary. Nothing happened. There's no reason for you to be scared.
You barely see the Slender Man.
It's the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
And I got that from the first Dead Space and then parts of Dead Space 2 where it was so even just the lighting is so dark. And the first time a necromorph comes out in Dead Space, I crapped myself and I didn't know where to. I was in a panic, the point where all I had to do was go through a door. I realized that the second time round when I was a bit more composed, but just that blind panic of not really being able to see this necromorph come at me.
That was my actual main problem with Dead Space 2 and the way they actually use the enemies. Like, even the way they introduced them. Dead Space 1, like you said, like, it is, I wouldn't go so far as saying it's scary, but
Sure. Okay.
Dead Space 2, meanwhile, it kind of goes for that kind of gory, you know, when the guy gets taken out in front of you and he transforms into that necromorph. And that's the difference. They're going for this Hollywood.
Yeah, and it feels like, especially in Western game development at the moment, there's, on the art side, there is an arrogance of being like, well, we spent all this money making it look fantastic, so we want you to really soak that up. And so it means all these games have these very impressive, high contrast, colourful vistas. And even in Dead Space 3, whenever it introduced a new enemy, it zooms in on them and does like a full 3D pan of it, as if to go, look at how good a job we've done. Whereas, of course, like the roots of fantastic filmmaking are all things like, you know, think of the original Alien. Obviously, you've got Aliens game coming out.
Yeah,
that was all like, they made this amazing model.
You didn't see it ever, did you? Right,
and it was that direction. It feels like we haven't got to the stage with some Western games where the director steps in and goes, I know you've made this look beautiful, but we're going to heavily obscure it. And I think it's games like, weirdly games like stuff like Dragon's Dogma and Dark Souls, which are kind of don't appear. They appear very ugly. And then you realize it's like they are actually at times extremely beautiful, but it doesn't show it off. It lets you kind of like soak it in from a distance. And I just feel, especially in this, when it's like, showing you, it's like, here's a 3D zoom pan of the
go into a
like,
cutscene and be like, oh, here's the scary thing about to jump on you. And it's that classic thing of, you know,
like, let it drop on me.
Yeah, the scariest thing is, like you said, though, like the unknown, like what's in your imagination. When you know there's something out there, but you don't know what it is, you don't know what it looks like. That's what's really scary.
With all that said, and I do agree with what's been said, I'm going to be controversial and say I'm actually quite enjoying Dead Space 3.
Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think you've played more than we played last night.
I played 3 hours now.
Okay.
So maybe an hour more than what you've got 3 or so. I think the biggest thing about Dead Space 3 seems to be it's been completely mismarketed. It isn't the game that I think a lot of people are expecting it to be, that kind of buddy co-op shooter on an ice planet. I mean, I played for 3 hours. I haven't seen the ice planet.
Yeah.
Bar from the opening 5-minute prologue thing. And actually, it feels a bit more like Dead Space 1 than Dead Space 2 ever did.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're bouncing between these kind of abandoned space stations, whereas Dead Space 2 was obviously all on that kind of space city, and it didn't really have the same kind of vibe, same feel. Whereas Dead Space 3, I think, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by it because I didn't expect anything like that to be in it. And I am kind of enjoying it. I'm worried that they've gone and done a Tomb Raider and made the stuff that made Dead Space so good, the optional stuff.
Right.
So there's all these optional, you just seen them yesterday, there's optional stuff to go off and explore, you know, these
space
stations.
You get into that little transit type thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where we didn't play it for very long. I have a problem with games that wrestle control away from me now. I think, as many people have said many times, Dark Souls has ruined gaming for me in a way, because I think that now, because it was such a breath of fresh air, that now, in many ways, when you start going back to playing games that think it's okay to let you walk forward for 5 seconds and then do a cutscene, then walk forward 5 seconds. And it doesn't, I think the idea is that it makes you feel like you're more involved by making sure that you get to press a button every 10 seconds, but you don't. And actually, I'd rather have really clean cut. And I think a lot of the time people say, somebody on Twitter actually, I was discussing this a minute ago, said, well, actually, yeah, but Uncharted always gets let off the hook for this stuff. I don't think it does. I think what was clever about Uncharted is it made it very crystal clear when you were in a cutscene and when you were in an action bit. And usually it was just a case of him putting his gun away and they stopped to talk. And it never did the thing of going mid-conversation, quick, you've got to shoot someone.
Well, they're trying to force emotional engagement on you by giving you a movie.
But I just switch off because I don't like watching TV. And I think that's the problem. And I think what a lot of big game makers don't seem to realize is they're trying to ape Hollywood because they know that movies are successful, but they're forgetting that actually a generation of us who've grown up loving video games have actually, I find, at the same time, grown increasingly distant from traditional media. I don't really watch a lot of television and movies because they don't really excite me anymore in the same way, just because I've played too many games.
Yeah. Well, Dead Space 1 didn't have any of that. The lead character didn't even talk.
Yeah.
You only saw his face in like the final 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, and now you see what's happening to Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. It's like,
he's a character. He's got a story. His girlfriend.
Dead Space 3,
girlfriend.
The opening 30 minutes of Dead Space 3, I found appalling. That whole apartment escape section. Like, what is that about?
I didn't know what was going on.
No, we didn't have a clue. And the way, literally, they think they can do the whole creating a sense of place by just having an answer machine that says you've missed your rent.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is really like primary school level exposition.
Yeah.
Like, I could write better than this. Yeah. And obviously, we were laughing about the fact that people have just written on the walls of the spaceship, like, suicide in a lovely font. It's like, who did this? Like, there's so many things where I just sort of think they've brushed over things going, that'll do, that'll be exposition, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot about when we live streamed it yesterday, that the most exciting thing to happen in a 2 hour period was Adam coming into the studio to show us an abnormally large chicken breast he was about to cook.
What? Oh, you should have seen this chicken breast, mate.
It was about almost a foot long.
Like, you know the way that Spencer always wants to like pop his head in?
Yeah.
I thought it was Spencer at first. It's Adam, and he's like, are you live streaming? It's like, yeah, Adam, we're live. He's like, I got to show you this. I'm sorry, I got to show you. He comes in, plate, the biggest chicken breast I have ever seen.
He does like his
We
chicken.
put it up to the camera for comparison. It was bigger than an Xbox controller, like considerably bigger.
It was huge.
I mean,
the biggest chicken breast I've ever seen.
But I found myself, when I was cycling home after that, I thought, that shouldn't have been the most exciting thing that happened to me tonight. But it was. And
I'll be telling my kids about that chicken breast.
The scary games, I'm actually getting back into scary games. I played them, I did a bit of live stream.
Yeah, you did, you streamed a few scary games.
I'm tempted to do that again, just because people seem to enjoy me being genuinely uncomfortable on camera.
The thing with scary games, it's you get that if you're like me and you, I think you as well, Dave, like you get that sort of real adrenaline rush from playing scary games. Even though I don't like playing scary games, I can barely make my way through.
I don't like watching scary films.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Do it.
But it kind of makes you feel alive. It gets the blood pumping.
So I don't think there's anything scary about games these days that are traditional horror games or games in general, because there's no punishment on a failure condition. So Demon Souls and Dark Souls are scarier games because if you die,
there's so much at stake.
I don't know. I think that they're intense, but not scary.
Not in terms of how you would define scariness, like you hear a violin stab and a cat jumps out, but in terms of having, like, like
classic cat, classic.
I agree, especially if the fear is supposed to be the fear of death.
Yeah, apprehension. I always thought that in older survival horror games or adventure games, the real fear came not just from the enemies that were in the environment, but the environment itself. I mean, Resident Evil 1 through maybe 3. The problem is not that there's enemies in the world because you can easily kill them. It's that to get from A to B, it just takes so long and will take so much resources that it's a strategy game, Resident Evil, about planning, not about shooting or really surviving in the classical sense of now you run from A to B. So games for me aren't scary anymore like that. They make you jump.
I know what you mean. I think it wasn't until I played Dark Souls for the first time that I really appreciated shields in video games, because up until that point, shields in video games had always been something you could put in your offhand, but why would you when you can put another sword and you can hit with 2 swords but for more damage? It was always just a case of going, well, that's boring, I'm not going to do that. And yet in Dark Souls, when I was trying to explain to people who had never played it before, and Demon Souls, of just having this explanation of being like, you'd be edging along this cliff face with your shield out, and it's like rather than having a lot of games, you feel like empowered when you're swinging a sword, and you imagine like, I'm swinging this sword. But Dark Souls for me is all about the left-hand grip. It's all about that imagined tight fist holding a little buckler of being like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I don't want to die. But having said that, like, I was playing Amnesia on the weekend, and I played that for about 2 hours, and I loved that, even though I hated it. But that was like, there wasn't a fear of death by any means. It was just absolutely the fear of the unknown. I spent 2 hours playing it and I didn't see anything. Other than some weird books moving around.
But again, that's the environment as well.
But I knew there was something out there. I could hear something.
And you can see it all the time, like the whole Dead Space thing, like you're saying, you see the enemy before essentially it sees you. And it's almost like a cross section. You used to get books cross sections of like ships or whatever if you were particularly nerdy. But it's like that. It's essentially, as we were saying, the designer going, look, I drew this. Have you seen The Thing? It's like The Thing, but not quite as good because The Thing was amazing, but it'll be good.
We did a bit yesterday where it showed us like one of the aliens crawling out past a window really quickly and did the whole like violin, like, oh, but it's like, we've just killed 30 aliens. Like,
not scared.
You do that before we meet them, like not afterwards. It's just like they've absolutely forgotten the basics. But anyway, I mean, you been playing anything else, Dave, this week?
I've been getting back into Need for Speed Most Wanted, which is weird because I 100%ed that on Xbox.
Yeah.
And
Because
then
you said you'd also played some Forza Horizon, right?
I finished Forza Horizon as well.
That's interesting because the consensus seemed to be that Horizon was the better one. What do you reckon?
Personally, I prefer Need for Speed. I've said this before on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think Forza is a great racer. I think it's a little bit dull, and I really don't like the setting. I think that dusty road thing gets old really fast. Need for Speed. I mean, I've gone back to it because of the DLC. The DLC was cheap last week, or what the price it perhaps should have been when it first came out. Let's say, but and it feels a lot more burnouty again, which is great because they're the faster cars and they set these kind of speed challenges, and it's like the burning routes from the older Burnout games.
Okay.
It's like one collision and you've got to restart.
Yeah.
Like that.
So what did you get in the DLC then? What was in that?
What's in it?
Yeah.
So you get 5 cars, which are basically variations on existing cars.
Okay.
But super speedy.
But I guess it's more stuff to unlock
And
as
it's
well,
more events.
Yeah.
It's nothing special.
Okay.
It's nothing like what they did with Burnout Paradise, where they added a new area.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hoping that will still come in the future.
I'm gutted I never went to that because I loved. I mean, obviously, Steve, you worked on QA for Burnout Paradise, so you've kind of got a hatred for the game.
I've had my fill of Burnout.
You've had your fill with that,
Paradise,
but personally, it's one of my favourites all time.
it's good. It's a good game, but
and I know, I can imagine. I've never had to. Yeah, people always say, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to be a games tester?" And especially, I always say no, especially when it's children, because I've often had children going, "I want to be a games tester," and I just go, "No, you don't." And I just break that dream right then because it's like you will hate whatever game you played. I actually applied to be a games tester for the original Black and White, but they turned us down. I think we were only me and my mate Sean. We were about 16 or something. They never got back to us. I'm really glad they didn't because
your life could have turned out very differently.
I'd probably be a mechanic.
Could have turned out like mine, sunken eyes.
I'd be a plaster of fear.
Haggard man.
I'd have been out years ago.
Are you playing much of the multiplayer of Need for Speed? Because I've heard that's really good.
I tried it, but I couldn't get into it. It's one of those things where you need to play with friends.
Yeah.
And the problem with that as well is that when you're not playing with friends, everyone wants to do different things, but the game is directing you to do a particular thing.
Yeah.
And nobody really wants to do that.
I did think now when I saw it being demoed, they look like fun, but it's like everyone needs to come here now for this to start.
It's fun when it's organised properly,
Well, that's
but
the thing,
the beauty of that game is that there's no organisation to it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
what I
kind of
got.
conflicting.
Okay.
It's like it kind of they were showing it off at Gamescom, and they were like, even then when the devs were saying, "Oh, everyone needs to drive here," and there was one Spanish journalist who wasn't, and they were like, "No, you need to come and drive here."
Yeah.
It felt like this is going to be the equivalent of when you've got a party and you decide at 11:15 that you want to play Twister, and everyone's already drunk in the kitchen. And you're trying to say, "No, but everyone, stop what you're
Twister
doing
time.
now. We're going to have some organised fun." And I've seen how badly that always.
It's like in World of Warcraft
goes.
when you got your party for a raid and then, someone's like, just got to go eat quickly. I got to eat. Sorry guys, I got to eat. And then you're like, all right, we'll wait. And then you wait like half an hour. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Vaguely.
I tried.
My WoW days have ended a long time ago.
I tried Horizons multiplayer over the weekend actually as well, and like there are these party modes where it's like chase people down and stuff like that. But the most of it, the majority of it is straightforward racing, and the netcode is pretty weak.
Really?
Like it lags, and like the cars in front of you will randomly just jump like 5 feet in the air. And it's like, what's going on here? This is bizarre.
Up vertically?
Yeah, vertically. They'd just be like 5 feet off the road. And I'd be like, I didn't expect this from a game released like 2-3 months ago.
It's a feature,
That's an old
feature.
Yeah.
DLC.
I can imagine like the ghosting you sometimes get, like going back and forward, but not vertically.
It's fine. It doesn't affect it too much, but it's just this weird kind of thing to see. And
yeah,
I don't know.
That's weird. But Need for Speed.
What
enjoying it?
Oh, sorry.
No, we're done.
We're done.
Need for Speed's the better game, in my opinion.
Cool.
Controversial. And on that bombshell, what have you been playing?
I've been playing, well, apart from Dead Space 3, which I played a lot. I played the first 3 hours about 6 times, preview and then co-op.
Right, yeah.
But FIFA 13 on Vita, which I still maintain is better than FIFA 13 on consoles.
What?
And you know, and
You cray? How does that work?
I'm fairly certain it's because FIFA has had so much feature creep that it's now really over-engineered. Like the new PES, I believe is better because even though it would play a more, say, arcadey version of football, it still has the hooks in it to make it look authentic and feel authentic, despite the fact it's nothing like actual football. FIFA tries to be more like actual football, but in doing so, really, really over eggs everything. Like getting a player to turn around in FIFA is like turning a boat around.
Yeah.
And the control of the ball, this is a slave to the animation. Now,
I can appreciate that.
the Vita version, I'm fairly certain, because it has less features on the pitch, is quicker and more responsive because of that. And maybe that's just confirmation bias or whatever, but I just prefer it. And it's also got different animations to FIFA 13 on console. And one thing in football games these days, the new PES is particularly guilty for this, is the goalkeeping animations. There's too few of them. So goals tend to start looking very similar.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Vita version of FIFA, there's so many different ones. And it's so well animated.
Yeah.
And it's just, well, the reason I play it's just perfect to play on the bus on the way
Well,
to
that's it.
work.
Okay.
I guess you get this with every genre, really, is that you do have the kind of the purists who always love the super kind of realism. And as far as they're concerned, if it's aping something that's supposed to be real, then the closer to real it is, the better. And obviously with car stuff, I always found that really, really tiresome. And football, you see, I've never been interested in football, just because my dad failed to he wasn't interested in it. I remember it was really funny, actually, when I was about 18, he said to me one day, because his mate was around, he liked football, he said, "Hey, do you want to watch the match tonight?" And I was like, "What?"
As
We're going to watch the match. Do you want to watch the match? And I was like, "No." Like, if you want to get me into football, you should have done it like 12 years ago. Like, I'm not ever going to be into football now. And neither is he. It was a phase that lasted about a week. But no, my favourite football game ever was ISS on the SNES. Just because you could turn fouls off and then you could keep cropping their goalie until you'd taken out the first goalie, and then you'd taken out the replacement goalie, and then they didn't have a goalie. And then it was just a case of everyone racing to try and take out the goalie,
Injure
so you
as
could
many
just get
people
as
as
many
possible.
goals as you wanted.
That sounds like BS.
But yeah, no, I love that stuff. And obviously ISS is where Pro Evo started. And that arcadey thing, it feels like, I don't know, when I watch people playing FIFA now, it feels like I'm not interested in playing that.
It feels slow and it feels really bogged down. I know you can change the sliders, but you know that's a design decision. You know that should be made by the guys who make it. No. But yeah, I also been playing a bit of. I played Hitman HD Trilogy, which was a mixed bag. I mean, I love the Hitman titles. I've played the games. Like all the games that were on console. I didn't play the original, but a load of those missions were remade in contracts. But anyway, I played them and I was really looking forward to the HD trilogy, and we got it in the office and we were playing through, and I was like, doing the old hits, you know, like I used to. Sure. Like double headshot on the Russians in Kirov Park meeting, all these great missions. And I mean, it looks okay. It looks probably as well as it could, given that it's just upscale 10-year-old games. But then Blood Money, I've just put the disc in on 360. It's on a separate disc, and it's got the same PAL 50 hertz bug that it had when it came out in 2006. Yeah. Now that's unacceptable. Now, we've got there's a warning on the box that says may not be compatible with older televisions. There's a 50-inch Samsung Plasma in the boardroom I was playing it on. Yeah, and those things will accept like whatever you put into it. You could probably mash a banana into the back of one of those, and it will go, all right, it's a banana. I mean, it wouldn't like it, but it would do it just because it could. And then people. They won't accept that. People want to be. I think people want to be pleased by games. For those who don't know, basically, I think what the problem is that it means that because of the 50 hertz thing, it means that if your TV is set to 60 hertz, you need to use your old Xbox component cable to go to standard definition, so you can make some changes. But then the problem is, people now, most people, myself included, have bin their component cable and just gone straight over to the sexy HDMI. Yeah. And if you've just got one of those, you can't really do anything about it. I think it's like the console as well, because when you use standard definition cables, you get the PAL 50 and 60 hertz options that you don't if you're using, because I thought, just to make sure it wasn't just a telly, I tested on a few different televisions, and you can force those tellies via the console into 60 hertz. So that should be fine, but it's more like a console based problem, but it's still not acceptable. I don't know. Yeah. And this is an overriding problem I have with video, games players, including myself, probably been guilty of this, is that you want to love something so much that you will forgive it anything. Yeah. Like on PC games, this is especially prevalent. The game launches, it's not finished, and you're just like, it's fine.
I still haven't heard the Hotline Miami music.
Yeah, classic.
Anyway, Yeah,
But no, you're right though. You're right, and it
I had a
shouldn't be
big
that
bug
way.
with Hotline Miami actually, and they fixed it quite quickly actually. But mine had this thing where it just incrementally slowed down until it was like boom, 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 and it made the game so easy.
Yeah, but like you're saying, like it seems with people who've kind of grown up with PCs, they're more accepting of these problems, which they shouldn't be.
I still think it's boring.
I don't know. I think the Hitman thing is really interesting because obviously Absolution was a controversial one. I reviewed it for OXM. It's one of the last games I reviewed it, and I gave it a 9 because I love that game. I had a great time with it. But it feels like, especially the way that people really hated on Absolution, but also are forgiving of Blood Money and the fact that it hasn't aged very well. It feels like it's less about the games now, and for me, it feels like it's kind of a sign of the times in the fact that games like the original Hitman games represented such an amazing landmark for what PC games used to be and what we felt that games should aspire to be like. And that's something that has changed in the big market in the past sort of 5-10 years. And so I feel like lots of people, before Absolution had come out, they already didn't want to like it just because they felt that the experience of what they wanted wasn't going to be there exactly.
But I mean, I think that it's easy to see a franchise that you love and then it becomes different. And the trap to try and avoid, although it's hard, I've done this before myself, is, you know, judge the game that comes out of it on its own merits. I mean, for example, Resident Evil 4. Now, before Resident Evil 4 came out, and even today, some people say, oh, you know, it's a great game, but it's not a Resident Evil game. Well, you know, it says Resident Evil on the box and it's absolutely brilliant. And that was fine. And Resident Evil 4 was a landmark game because every game, like Uncharted,
it was the first Resident Evil game I played.
Every game after Resident Evil 4 was Resident Evil 4. Like, you know, that whole tight on the shoulder, Gears of War's influenced by it. And so you can see Resident Evil 4 in almost every action shooter today. But with Hitman Absolution, now I loved the Hitman series and I really liked Hitman Absolution. Really, I could appreciate that it had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But I was ready to give it that chance. But I don't think a lot of people were because they saw, and again, it was very badly marketed, like huge mistakes, like the whole nuns thing and showing linear levels first. But the thing is that video games franchises that are 10, 15 years old are not made for the same people that they were anymore.
No.
So people who play Resident Evil 6, maybe they're like 15 years old. You know, well, when Resident Evil came out, you know, they weren't there. They weren't sitting around going, oh, you know, I can't wait for Resident Evil 2 or 3 or whatever. So it's different. And those old games still exist. No one deleted them. No. You know, it's like remember this argument when, of all things, the Halloween remake by Rob Zombie, everyone was like, oh, it's ruined it. And it wasn't, you know, great. And it did go against the fundamental core of the Carpenter original, but it didn't delete it. You know, it's just, so you just got to accept it.
A big argument, though, is why can't we just have what came before, but prettier?
Because the market won't sustain it.
Yeah, I think what we have to forget about is the prettier. And I think that's the big thing.
I agree. But
I've started doing that. And I think that's the thing is basically people, what they say they want is the same prettier, but then that doesn't sell. And I think it's just, you know, the development costs of these games are insane. And they need, basically, they can't justify being pretty and being this great, this dream that we've had about what games will be like. They can't exist without the market to support them. And the market to support them, I think as we're going to find this year, I think this year is going to be pretty disastrous for a couple of companies. It just isn't there. But then at the same time, it's like, I love the fact that the indie scene is exploding. In the past month, we've had 3 or 4 amazing indie games come out, one after the other. And I think it's just a case of the fact that there are people who want these cool niche experiences. They're just making them, and they're making them on their own or with a mate, and they're proper ropey. But you start to remember that doesn't matter. And I think that sometimes people just get too hung up on franchises, and you just go, if you want that kind of experience, that's cool, but it doesn't have to be that man, especially when it's a man like Agent 47. It's like, why does it need to be that bloke with that barcode? There's other games that offer a similar thing. Just give it up.
It's especially seductive in video games to always be looking for the pretty, because as video games get better looking, they do offer something that you haven't seen before. Whereas in films, there are films from the 70s that are better shots in terms of, the cinematography or the direction than film, like loads of films. That's fine. But in video games, it's, like I say, seductive because you see, say, I don't know, like Grand Theft Auto 5, which I'm sure will be brilliant. But you look at that world, you're like, oh, and then suddenly you're thinking about San Andreas, and maybe you'll go back to play San Andreas, and all you're thinking of, I want this, but more. But I think there will come a time, hopefully, when that just levels off, and you'll start to get more games that, as I say, the indie games will, in a way, become more prevalent because people will care more about what's in them as opposed to what's presenting.
I think it's not just about the small stuff either. We've seen like I think a studio and a publisher that I'm really hopeful for in the next few years is CD Projekt Red.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for wanting prettier games. I mean, that's part of the reason why I play pretty much all my games on PC, because I want a better looking game than on a console. So I think there is an argument for getting games, the graphics in games being a major selling point. And a lot of people argue, no, we need to sort of innovate on the actual gameplay and the mechanics. And yeah, we do as well. But at the same time, everyone wants a better looking game, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's just whether or not you can sustain it. And I think it's interesting that stuff like The Witcher has been doing really well. That's so niche. And I think that that's what they've forgotten, is that they've kind of gone, well, we need to spend this much money, so we need to be mass market. And we get these products that just feel like the video game equivalent of Woolworths.
Has it been doing really well, though? When you say something like The Witcher has been doing really well, has it?
I think it's been
doing well enough. I mean,
I think it's been doing better than you would expect from, I don't have numbers, but from like, an independent developer, some, Eastern European.
Yeah, when you put it on paper, obviously. Like,
and you have to
I don't know what the numbers are.
You have to bear in mind that they only even put their first game on the Xbox last year. On console. And I think that it's one of those things that they've just built a reputation. And I think that it's growing. I think that gradually, and I think that's how sequels should function. And it's not about just, I think it's very smart that they've announced The Witcher 3 this week, and then they've also said, we've got a permanent price drop on The Witcher 2. So now it's 20 quid on Xbox and half price on PC. So what's going to happen now over the next year and a half is lots of people, after playing Dragon Age and Skyrim and stuff, will be like, well, after a while, because it's so critically acclaimed, people who love RPGs are going to go, well, I'm going to check it out. And like myself, they're going to realize that The Witcher 2 is absolutely amazing. And the fact that with The Witcher 3, they're looking at trying to ramp up this idea of going on monster hunts and having like this open world in which you have to prepare and read up on these monsters and learn their weaknesses and bring the right potions and bring the right weapons. That aspect of The Witcher 2 is so exciting. And the fact that they're actually focusing on that, it's basically going to be like, in my mind, it's going to be like a non-Japanese Monster Hunter, which, no offense to Monster Hunter, that sounds amazing. That sounds better than what Monster Hunter is.
That's a nice thought.
Monster Hunter appears to be a game you play for 15 hours and then go, what am I doing? I don't understand
what have I been doing?
But actually on that note, I mean, this feels like a good time, Dave. Well, that's one bit of news we've had, Witcher 3. Dave, soak us up. Fire us a beam of news.
Get us wet with news.
Chuck a bucket of news on our faces.
It's all about next gen. No, everyone won't shut up about next gen. Everyone's just like, blah, 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 blah. Next gen's happening. Happening. So yeah, PS4, hopefully, February 20th.
But is it going to play DVDs?
It's a Blu-ray only future.
Is GTA 5 going to be cross-generational? You'll be there in New York on the 20th, won't you? So you're gonna be reporting.
Are they going to bring back
reporter on the ground, David Scammell? Newsline.
Speaking of Morse code.
Breaking news.
Hold the front page.
Stop the press.
We need to get you those reporter hats.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
so you can put a ticket in.
That'd be awesome.
Are they going
buy one for
to
you.
bring back the slot for the PlayStation 1 memory card?
No.
Because I've still got one, just in case.
In
You
case
still got a
there's
PS1
emergency.
memory card.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I keep memory cards. Does nobody else do this?
Yeah, I do.
course.
Not all of them,
Around.
just some.
The Dreamcast VMU was the best thing.
I've still got all of my Dreamcast stuff. I refuse to.
I think I've got a few GameCube memory cards.
I used to take my child to school in my
Oh, really?
pocket,
Yeah,
play it on lunch.
I
go back,
realised
put it in
when they
there.
brought out Sonic Adventure 2 on XBLA that because it didn't have the Chow VMU stuff, because it couldn't, and because they hadn't even bothered to fudge any kind of virtual console within the game, which they should have done, I realised that the only reason I liked that game was because of the Chow VMU. And without that, it was a husk. It
I
was
think that stuff's gonna-
horrible husk.
I think it's going to become more prominent with next gen. I think like just, the apps and stuff on your phone, they're going to tie into games. Look at what Ubisoft doing with Far Cry at the moment, or are trying to do with Far Cry. It's this weird kind of unlock / level up your weapons for multiplayer by doing something on your phone.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I'm not quite sure it works as well as they wanted it to work. But I think that side of it might come
It'll
back.
get there. And I'm interested in Xbox Smart Glass, even though they appeared to originally pitch that. They seem to be just pitching it at TV people.
Yeah.
Like, the Game of Thrones presentation, that was amazing. Where they're like, they had a bit going, oh, so I'm watching Game of Thrones and I'm thinking, where is this character? And I look at my iPad and it's like, oh, he's north of the wall. It's like, well, if you've been concentrating on the flipping program, you'd know he was north of the wall because you know what? Him going north of the wall was a pretty flipping big deal. All right.
But then, having said that, I wouldn't want to look at stuff like that on an iPad while I'm watching a film.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's something else
like,
to distract you,
it's
right?
the DVD extras. You watch it after if you're interested in that stuff. It's like, I don't see how that will work simultaneously. But then, having said that, I upgraded to Windows 8 recently, and that comes with Smart Class built into it as well.
Okay.
And so playing Forza, you're like, right, click here for my next waypoint. Instantly, it's in the game, directing you where to go. And like, that's so much easier than fiddling between different menu screens and stuff. Just sit next to your computer, being able to just.
I like the idea.
That's quite cool.
And this is a mental idea. But imagine if it had a smart glass thing in like GTA, right? So when your phone rings in the game, it doesn't ring in the game, it rings your phone. So then you actually have to do the thing of like, you'd load up the app and it would turn your phone into a GTA phone. So you'd be able to surf the GTA internet on it and do all that stuff and dial up your contacts. But it would mean if you're getting chased by the police and your phone rang, you'd then be trying to drive the car whilst listening to someone on the phone. How cool would that be?
That'd be quite cool.
That's not encouraging good driving practices.
No. It wouldn't, but it's not real cars, is it? So
this is also more of that. I think the Wii remote had the microphone, so I can't remember which game it was. No More Heroes, I think, when you got the phone call, you could lift it up. But I think one game that's going to really push the using your phone or asymmetrical gaming, if it lives up to the promises, is Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
Where if I'm on the train and someone's like, oh, I need you to do this, and it's just like a cool mini game, but it gives me stats, and it's not just like flicking something, and I can see the network and maybe something a bit like, I don't know, Pipe Mania, or it's just something really like time wastering that I can then dial into someone else's game.
I think it's really exciting. Yeah. People talk about augmented reality, but I think it's so much better than just having 3D nonsense flying around in front of your face. I think it's what I love about games, and what I've always loved about games is the same thing I love about Doctor Who, is that it gives the real world another context that makes the real world more exciting. And that's what I've always liked about video games is you go, and you sort of imagine yourself blowing up cars with rocket launchers or climbing up buildings and if you can have that bleed, so you get that kind of feeling of being like, make the real world more exciting by turning everyday objects into things that are kind of exciting. Yeah. Then, I'm down with that. So what else has been happening apart from?
Well, I was just quickly on, if it is PlayStation 4, I mean, what are we expecting to see in terms of software? I mean, I'd imagine Gorilla will be there.
Crash Bandicoot.
Well, I don't know about Crash Bandicoot. I wish there was Crash Bandicoot. I wish there was Jumping Flash. I'd imagine they might show off some sort of Gran Turismo prototype concept
something
that'll be out in 2030.
Yeah. Some shiny car.
It would just be really good looking cars. Yeah. Be like, God damn, that car is real.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, no, this is an engine. And people's minds will be blown.
When it gets to like 2018, they'll go, no, we didn't say it'd be out in 2013. We said 2030. You misheard us. It's not our fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see some cars always go down well.
And Sucker Punch, the guys that did Infamous, I mean, they must have been doing something for a couple of years.
That's true.
So
my biggest question with the PS4 is what are they going to do in terms of infrastructure? Because they invested so heavily, and it's such a dumb move. Sony was so greedy with the PS3 that they thought, well, we dominated the DVD player market, that what we'll do is we'll pack our next console full of stuff like Blu-ray, the chip, all this proprietary tech with either themselves or companies they have dealings with to make sure that they could then dominate the tech market for the next 10 years. And of course, the opposite happened in the fact that they lost the tech market entirely.
Blu-ray's done.
But now they've invested so much money into these studios, getting them to use Blu-ray and the chip. Blu-ray's not so much of an issue. That's just the speed of asset loading stuff. People can get around that. But the chip is a very specific bit of gear.
Yeah.
And obviously the reason that Uncharted games are so cool is because they've learned to master that.
Yeah.
Do Sony continue down that route of using that technology? Or do they just have to turn around to these studios and say, look, guys, we know you've spent 4 years learning to use this hardware, but forget it, we're ditching it. Because I think that's the smarter move.
They're gonna get rid of it.
They've got to get rid of it,
more
surely.
like PCs now. You can't put much stock in all of the rumors and speculation, but the rumors that are consistent with what I think is going to happen is, it's just like, it's going to be specialized architecture hardware that is kind of already out there. And the reason I think is because the R&D cost for something like the Cell, which was, as you said, meant to be built. I mean, I remember the talk when it was like, it's going to be in your toaster. And on your PlayStation, you can tell your toaster to make you toast. It's like, how's the bread going to get in there? Don't worry, because bread will have chips in it these days.
Yeah, but imagine that. If, like, when you weren't making toast, it could be, like, curing cancer. Like, in the way that you
folding at home.
Yeah. Folding at home.
Folding at home.
Yeah, I'd rather it just folded my washing.
Folding bread.
Like, I don't care about
If it could do ironing, it'd make me happy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I think the future of like gaming is like a phone sized thing. Maybe it is your phone with proprietary. This is some way off, but then you take it and you dock it, and then it pulls everything down, from that centralized system, and maybe consoles as you know it won't really exist, but there'll be more.
Yeah, Steve, and we'll all be in flying cars.
Hey, look.
To the cloud.
Look, I mean, there haven't been flying cars, but if I went back to, say, when the original PlayStation launched and told the young me what was going on, he'd be like, firstly, what is that haircut? And secondly, that sounds amazing, And I think it's like, everything seems really banal when you're like experiencing it because everything just changes at the pace that you're. Yeah. So you're like,
it's new TV syndrome. You buy a new TV, it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen.
3 days later, I want a bigger one.
Yeah, you're just used to it. It's just what you have.
But I think it's more. I think we're almost living in like a software world now rather than as Sony had it, an engineering company, a hardware world where they were going to dominate with hardware.
Absolutely. And I think that the Wii U is shafted for exactly the same reason that the PlayStation 3 was shafted. And the fact that everyone kept saying with the PlayStation 3, yes, but it's more powerful, which means it's going to be better games, more interesting games. And it never happened. And I knew it would never happen because at the end of the day, you have different tech, divergent, and you think, well, we need to invest more money to make this version the best it can be. Do we want to do that? Well, no, because we're not going to sell more games on it. Yeah. And with the Wii U's got this thing of like, oh, well, obviously you can do this cool stuff with a controller, but because it's using that classic PC architecture, it's just going to get the same games as everything else. But then when people come down to it, when the man with the checkbook goes, okay, well, we can make the Wii U version really, really cool and do all this stuff with thing. They go, how much is that going to cost? And they go, well, it's going to cost, I don't know, maybe $1 million, $2 million more. And they just go, nah.
Yeah, it becomes not worth it.
And so it's just going to be like, it must have been incredibly frustrating to be a hardcore Sony fanboy for the past 10 years because you've got this machine that's incredibly powerful, and yet you're getting the worst ports. You're getting like stuff like Bayonetta with like these broken, dodgy ports because people are making it for the biggest platform, i.e. PC and Xbox, and then just you're an afterthought.
It's not even niche games like Bayonetta. Well, I guess Bayonetta wasn't niche as such, but it was fairly specialised, But Call of Duty, Black Ops, and apparently Black Ops 2. I haven't played it, but I've heard that PS3 version still has like pretty big issues. It's like what's going on here? Why is this not?
But in an alternate reality, if Sony had like dominated the market, it would be the complete opposite.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
in many regards, actually, PC gaming might not have taken off in the same way because people would have concentrated on the infrastructure of the PlayStation and they would have become more divergent. But now, because of the success of the Xbox, you've got developers who've gone, well, actually, we can invest on this PC games because we know it will also run on an Xbox really well and the next gen. I think in many ways, actually, whilst the current direction of what the Xbox is and what the Xbox is becoming doesn't interest me, I think we've got to thank it a lot for the success of how much it's boosted the PC games industry. Like, stuff like Skyrim looks amazing on PC. And I just don't think we'd ever had anything like that.
Put like 30 mods on it as well. Yeah. Oh my God.
My Little Pony mods, turn the dragons into My Little Ponies.
Crazy stuff. Can't run them, but it runs at like 2 frames per second, but great.
Looks lovely.
Brilliant screenshot.
It's like a screenshot that changes every 5 seconds.
Gallery.
Yeah. And sometimes you get killed.
It's a slideshow. Yeah, it's good.
Brilliant. Anyway,
I like it. Yeah.
Next, we brought it up a few minutes ago. GTA 5. Delay.
Yeah, I know. And
what do we think?
This has got quite big ramifications.
Yeah.
For other developers, really, publishers.
The ripples go out every time.
Yeah.
It's like
it's a wave.
Tsunami, it's a butterfly effect.
I bet there were people somewhere going, fuck!
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So they basically they just pushed it back because they wanted more time.
They pushed it back because they claim it needs a little more polish.
No, but that's a lie.
To be of the standard we, and more importantly, you require.
Oh, nice. Put it on us.
Yeah.
Always a lie.
We expect more.
That's always a lie. It's got to be. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
So it's September now, September 17th.
Because I think there's one of 2 options of why this could be. And I think the options are either they've been waiting to find out what's going on with next gen, and either they think next gen early sales are not going to be a big enough threat, so they can bring it out close to Christmas and dominate those sales without having all the people having bought new gen consoles and not being interested in it.
They suggested that last night.
Or cross-gen. Cross-gen.
Well, both. I think both are possibilities. I mean, Strauss last night said that he didn't think next gen, given the lower install base, would be a big threat to GTA sales. At the same time, he said no one is going to not buy GTA because they're waiting for a next gen version.
That's true.
So I think they're pretty confident. They're getting a little bit cocky, I think, but they deserve to be. I think,
cocky?
This is Take-Two rather than Rockstar, but
I've never known I've known one game which shall remain nameless that has been finished way before its release date.
Yeah,
and actually left on the shelf for about a year, I think.
Is this a recent game?
No, that was like to do with like movie licenses. So they finished it in conjunction with the predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they were like, well, because it used all the same assets and stuff, just the story stuff was a bit different. But I think whatever the actual agenda for the delay is, maybe they want more money or they want more positioning or more sales, which they do. I think, they're not going to stop working on GTA 5. So I think I used to get really annoyed with delays when I was younger, but now I'm like, just take it. No one really remembers the GTA 4 delay. I did at the time. It was 6 months, and I thought, I'm going to be very upset. I'm going to do something crazy, like play Saints Row or something.
Whoa.
But, when it came out, you were like, actually, there are still some elements of this that are quite ropey. If it had come out 6 months, but 6 months is a long time in development. So I'm fine with that.
What I'm most interested about with GTA 5, though, is it going to be groundbreaking the same way? Because GTA 4 was such a spectacular use of the technology of the Xbox 360 that the first time I played it, it was just like, wow. It felt like groundbreaking. Even just crashing a car and watching myself fly through the windscreen into a wall, it was like, this is unlike anything I've ever played before. But
I think it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I'm just interested because I think the technology limitations this time, like, I think it will be better, but will it be like amazing in the same way?
I think it'll be more diverse like San Andreas was. Like, by the time San Andreas came out, that tech was really creaking. Like on PS2, you play it, you can't see more than 5 feet in front of you. It's like set in Silent Hill or something. But when you play it, we played it recently on PC, and all that's fixed. You start to appreciate what was in that game, and I think this is going to be more like San Andreas, and the multiple player characters and the switching between them. That is something that we haven't seen. And I think for Rockstar, I mean, we know what they're like. Those guys, they're crazy, for wanting their game to be the best in every single way, in every regard that word, brings. And I don't think they can let themselves not let it be something ridiculously, because otherwise it's just going to be like, oh, it's just another GTA.
At the same time, though, I mean, if the next gen consoles, or at least one of them, comes out October, November, December time, obviously they're going to be wanting to build up hype for that console, for the upcoming software. Yeah. When actually all the hype is still going to be on the current gen and on GTA.
Yeah, exactly.
Backwards compatibility, GTA bundled, the next generation console.
I wouldn't be surprised, and this is what I think that they've probably had this shift on the cards for a while. And I think it's probably come down to conversations with first parties. I would not be surprised if when they announce either the Xbox or the PlayStation, and Sony would be smart to spend the last of their pennies on this if they've got any.
I haven't. I've had to lend them money. Trust me.
Had to lend them a tenner for lunch. Mate, I'll pay you back. Just get yourself a sandwich, mate. Just don't spend it on booze. But no, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like, and we're going to have like a month of exclusivity to GTA HD.
Well,
what are they going to call
assets, it? If there's PC
hyper high definition.
Yeah, like, is it going to be HHD?
Ultra
4K.
definition.
Yeah.
GTA 4K. 5K. It's marketing. Oh, come on.
You're in the wrong job, Steve.
Maybe I'm a mole. But, if the new consoles are based on more kind of PC orientated, I mean, this is very, conspiracy heavy now, but why not just take the PC build, which they are obviously making, take those assets, scale it up, pack it in, sell it off.
Bosh.
I mean,
simple as that.
I love how cagey they've been about whether or not they're making it for PC. It's like, come on,
this
guys,
is the reason.
Dicks.
Put it together.
It's
2 and
literally
2,
like
get 22.
Yeah.
They must have seen all that stuff with the ice mod that turns GTA 4 into photographs. It's like,
that's so good.
Just do the decent thing and make a bloody PC game.
But where was Red Dead on PC?
Yeah.
Red Dead never.
They just don't.
Exactly.
Rockstar are divas. They're divas. They're wonderful divas.
Yeah.
And we let them get away with it because they've got a metaphorical sexy bottom.
Yeah. I do wonder if there is a lot more to that. I mean, Rockstar have only just announced a spring release date for GTA in the first place. They've only just kicked off their official pre-order campaign.
Well, Take-Two weird.
It's weird to just flip that within like a month or two.
Yeah, because trailer 2
it's a year off.
that came out, that had the sort of March. Was it March originally?
No, it didn't say
So
March.
it's just spring. Sorry, spring. And then to suddenly this, like you said, like this quickly, then push it all the way back. It's odd.
I mean, they say they're pushing it out to 4 months later than originally planned. So that does tally up with a May release, which we all kind of...
What happens now, and this is why I never thought it would go so late in the year, for any DLC for the game. Because, I mean, they proved with the episodes from Liberty City, they can tie in wonderful DLC and, you know, make everything really come together and use the environment they have in a different way with different characters and bespoke, you know, settings and storylines. And I thought they'd do that again. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Build the world, spend the money there, recoup some of it, you know. I mean, they'll make all the money back anyway, but now if everyone's not everyone,
if the market's moving,
it's a strange one. So I mean, let's just say it. It's coming out on next gen consoles. It'll be revealed, and if not, why not?
The general vibe though seems to be there's going to be a lot of cross generational development going on.
Definitely.
Like more so, I think, than in previous generations.
And I think it's going to probably just be a case of like the equivalent of, do you remember when they used to release stuff that was on the Xbox 360 on PS2 as well?
Yeah.
And it would just be like the rubbish version, like Call of Duty 2 Big Red one. Wasn't that one of them?
Yeah.
Big red pile of red. So I think that's about all we've got time for with the news zap. Thank you for firing that news beam into.
I'm delighted to do such a thing.
I'm soaked in news now.
I feel like I've got a tan.
I've jizzed my news on your
all over,
on your
drenched.
things. Yeah,
I'm all news everywhere, all over
Jesus.
me.
I feel like I need a shower.
Pass me a tissue.
On that note, we've been showered with more stuff from the forums and the internet. We got
Indeed, it's Member of the Month time.
Wow.
For those who don't know, by being a member of the lovely VideoGamer.com community.
Are they lovely?
They are. So, yeah, some of them are. No, they all are. I jest, they all are. But each month, oh gosh, I was very loud there. Each month, there's a chance to win. 3 people will win a game of their choice.
There's a chance to win 3 people.
There's a chance to win 3 people. Where
have you not heard about this? Because you are one of the people.
You're up for grabs, Steve.
Okay.
So you could win
Steve
Burns. But each month, there's a chance to win a game of your choice. The first chance to win is through a forum vote. This is all the people on the forum. They vote for who they think was the best person that month, who contributed the most.
Contributor.
Yeah, someone who made them laugh or made them think.
Got a monthly popularity contest. Popularity, nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
No.
Being popular can win you a game.
It's appreciating, your fellow forumites.
Fellow man.
And it was a tight vote this month, I have to say.
Was it?
It was a 3-way tie.
Was it?
A random vote.
Wow.
Random draw was done. And the winner this month of the forum vote is Portal Thinker.
Hey.
Good old Portal Thinker.
Congratulations, Portal Thinker. You've won a game.
And the second after 3 chances to win a game of your choice comes from everyone who voted in that previous forum vote. Yeah. Everyone who voted is then put into a random draw.
Another random draw.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sharing the love.
Like a lucky dip.
So by voting for someone, you are yourself put into a random vote.
Wow.
And the random winner of that vote is Majuth.
Wow.
Give me your choice, mate.
Congratulations. That's a tombola to be proud of.
A bit of a ripple of applause.
Finally, we had a bit of a competition, didn't we, with the special edition?
In the third and final way, we're just giving out games here, lads.
Love them.
Just giving them out. Each month we set a podcast challenge. Last month was inspired by the Dead Island Riptide horrific pre-order limited edition bust.
Yep.
It was a grotesque bust.
I almost pre-ordered one, but
it was horrific. So we wanted you to come up with your own limited edition pre-order bonuses in that vein, something outrageous. And there were some very
some of them were so outrageous. I'd go as far to say is like illegal or just downright offensive.
I was both shocked, horrified, and a little bit impressed.
Yeah, I was sort of impressed, but at the same time ashamed.
Yeah, it did make me feel a little bit dirty.
Yeah, but we did manage to find some entries that weren't like horrendous.
Absolutely. So the winner, actually honorable mentions, Hubo had a GTA 5 pre-order bonus. It was a prostitute piggy bank.
Yeah.
And he sent us a picture.
Wow.
So I think basically,
it was very good.
I don't want to spoil anything
picture
here, but I think the winner's basically the person who was the least like a potential sex offender.
Yeah.
So, I mean, bear that in mind for future competitions.
Well, the prostitute piggy bank goes with the theme of
just
GTA.
Don't be a potential sex offender, and you could win a free game.
Just in general as well,
It's good life advice. I think you can have that one for free.
I also like Minty Rebel had The Last Guardian pre-order bonus, which was the game. You actually get the game.
Wow.
Yeah. Pre-order and you'll actually get the game. I don't think that made me giggle. But the winner was Chilandi with his pre-order bonus for South Park: The Stick of Truth. It was the stick. You get the
a
stick.
stick.
And he actually found, the picture is brilliant. He actually found, I assume he just picked it up off the ground.
Yeah.
No.
It's a very good looking stick.
I think he broke it.
A good-looking stick.
It had a good-looking stick.
What defines a good-looking stick?
It was well
good.
formed.
The twiggy nature.
Yeah, the twiggy nature of it. But then he also had, it was like a limited edition, which was the same stick and had a leaf.
What?
Yeah,
That is
amazing.
effort.
And I'm just going to Jonathan Creek the shit out of this one, but I'd say that a tree, a branch looking that good with a leaf still on it, probably got pulled off a tree, which I'm not condoning, but at the same time, you have just won a game, so technically I am condoning that.
Yep.
Tom Ori really liked that one.
It was great. I like that one. It was funny.
Yeah,
It was
so
simple.
congratulations to everyone who won a game. Tom Ori will be in touch via personal message. We'll have a new podcast competition announced next week. And keep your eyes on the forums. Get involved with the community.
Yeah.
You could win yourself a free game.
You can literally win a game for not doing much. All you have to do is join the forums.
Just being a cool dude.
be a
and
cool
dudette.
dude
Yeah.
and don't be a sex offender. And on that, we've got some questions from our lovely selection. Let's have a turbo question round. And actually, Steve, it's your first time. on these.
question.
There's a lot of paperwork going on here today.
I know. It's because I can't see. I wasn't sure how I'd be able to see the computer from here. So I took the initiative of printing, and I bloody printed it horizontal.
Printed it
That's that
horizontal.
stick gone into making this.
Yeah, I didn't realise,
Horizontal.
but I printed it horizontal.
Who does horizontal printing?
I don't know. I just pressed print and it came out horizontal.
Jokers.
So PB Live, he says, assuming the new podcast is still doing your questions answered. Of course it is, mate. Of course it is.
Like we ever wouldn't.
Exactly. He said last week, you said you were feeling fruity. And he says, if the old and new podcasts were fruit, what fruit would they be?
If the older new podcast,
If the old
new.
and new podcasts were fruit, what fruit would they be? So I'd say the old podcast.
the old one was an apricot.
apricot.
I'd say the new podcast is a star fruit. And very impressive and shiny to look at, but fundamentally, when you get into the inside of it, a little bit disappointing.
and I was going to just say tasty.
And tasty, yeah.
Tasty.
Fruit is tasty, healthy, good for you.
So apricot.
Well, it's a bit furry and it looks a bit like an arse.
This is one of your 5
So-
podcasts a day.
Yeah.
You should be inducing.
He says, and if you were a fruit, what fruit would you be? I just go classic Granny Smith. It's like, you know what you're getting.
Apple.
You know what it tastes like. It's like, no nonsense. Granny Smith.
Strawberry.
Strawberry.
Don't know why.
Don't know why. Just like strawberries, Steve.
A little bit throaty.
Yeah.
Yeah, apple.
Apple.
Oh, we're so inventive. We
Say
are.
apple, like
Someone has to say passion
Let's skip
fruit.
ahead some non-fruit related
fruit,
questions. I'll be a banana.
If you had to come up with a motto/mission statement for the new podcast, what would it be?
Don't be a sex offender.
Don't be a sex offender. It's general good advice.
I'd run with that.
Generally good advice. Ultranga says, if life was a video game, would you play it as if you've been playing it so far?
No, I would have been taking far more outrageous risks and reloading.
Yeah.
Probably just jumping off things from great height to see if I could survive it. Stuff like that.
I would have tested the limits of more. I've led quite a conservative life, to be honest.
I'd love to jump out of my car while it's still moving.
Oh, that would be good.
Precisely. There's so many things you want to
I've
do.
jumped into a car while it's been moving.
Really?
Yeah.
No, we do. You have to like tell this story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Embellish.
No, it wasn't going very fast, but
You jumped into a car.
This has
the window-
become substantially less exciting in
the
my head.
window was open.
You jumped through the window of a
The
car.
window was open, and I was walking alongside my friends who was leaving the university campus.
Yeah.
and I was like, it'd be funny if I just like pretend I'm jumping in.
Did you know this
So,
person, or is this
yeah,
the sex offender
so,
thing again?
I sort of kind of leant in as he was going, not fast or whatever, and then they grabbed me and started driving. So I was halfway in and out of a car. Yeah. So
I was imagining like
it wasn't
crazy...
the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah,
I
that's-
didn't, because
disappointing.
unfortunately, unlike video games, permadeath is pretty permanent.
It's pretty
here.
perma.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
This is
maybe.
true.
I don't know. But we'll get onto that later.
Yeah, we'll save resurrection for another episode.
And finally, in Cheesy, do you think this is a very serious question. Do you think subscription models in games are on the way out?
Yes.
Or do they just need to evolve? For example, activity-based subscriptions that have sliding scale of payment based on how much you played in that month.
No,
What, like a phone bill?
like a pay as you
It's
go.
an interesting
type thing.
concept. Pay as you go. I mean, kind of like, in a way, some free-to-play games are modeled like that. Like the more so based on how they expect people to engage with the game. Like, some free-to-play games, the more you play it, the more you're into it, so the more willing you spend money. It's an interesting concept, though. I think
We'll see with Elder Scrolls, I guess.
I know. I worry about that game. I worry about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's plain to see that the old subscription model from World of Warcraft is going out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I wouldn't mind it. I think the problem is you can't have both. I think Guild Wars 2 does it really well of going like, well, you pay for the game and then it's free.
Yeah,
but I'd rather you can't have you pay for the game and then you keep paying, which I think is the problem. I'm not against the idea of subscriptions.
Well, it's like
think,
Dungeons and Dragons Online. They have an interesting model where the game is free and you get a fair amount of quests and you can level. There's no from what I can remember, there's no leveling locks, but there'll be a dungeon that it's just a 5-man raid, and if you want to do that, then you pay for that sort of dungeon, or you pay for an expansion pack which gives you a whole set of dungeons. So it's kind of it's modular in that sense, where the game is free and then you're paying for certain bits of content, and you don't have to. You can there's still stuff to do, but there'll be certain quests and certain dungeons where your friend might have that expansion.
It's loot, though, isn't it? That's what they want.
Exactly.
They don't want
loot.
quests. They want loot at the end of it.
But then who doesn't? That's the main reason I play those games. Yeah. But with EVE Online, that's still going strong. Not as strong as it was, but it's still going strong with the subscription model. But they've kind of embraced the whole real money trading, and it's got this bizarre economy in EVE Online where you can literally play that game and never have to pay for it again if you're that established as an industrialist, because you can pay for game time using in-game currency and vice versa. So you can buy a 30-day game time card with in-game currency that you've earned from in-game.
So it seems
and you can sell that. So they've got a forum where people are buying game time cards for real money, putting on the forums and saying, I've got a 30-day game time card. I'm selling it for 5 million ISK.
Right.
That's the in-game currency. And so everyone's winning in that sense. People who have got the real money to pay for these cards will do so that they can get
They're essentially
in-game
buying in-game credits.
Yeah, pretty much. But
in a roundabout way.
But then people who've got the in-game currency, they've got so much of this in-game currency, they don't have to pay for the game anymore because they can use that in-game currency to pay for this game time. And it's a weird economy.
So in conclusion, subscription-based gaming is not dead. It's just gotten very, very weird.
It's got bizarre. Yes.
I think that's about all we've got time for this week. But thank you very much for listening to episode 1 of the Video Gamer UK podcast. I'm Matt Lees. I've been joined by Matt Nellis.
Bye-bye.
Dave Scammell.
See you later.
And Steve Burns.
See ya.
Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next week.